Well, I don't think it's much of a surprise to probably anybody to say that Japan is definitely known a lot for their video games. I mean, just right off the bat, you have two of the three main consoles, Nintendo and PlayStation, coming from Japan. You also just have huge companies in general that just make very good games. I mean, there's Capcom, Square Enix, Sega, From Software, Konami. So yeah, you get the picture. Japan is definitely known for supplying a lot of these games, but maybe what's not looked at as much is the demand of games in Japan. You know, what are gamers in Japan playing, and specifically what platforms are they playing on? Now, this is one of many things that a recent report that just came out 4 days ago on December 20 covered. Now, this is from an organization in Japan called the Computer Entertainment Suppliers Association, or CESA. Now, they release an annual report from the previous year. That's kind of usually how data collection works. Unfortunately, it's always like a year behind with these reports, but it looked at a bunch of data from 2023. Now, unfortunately, with this report, I mean, it's one thing that it's in Japanese, but I mean, I can just use Google Translate for it, but it's another thing that it's actually behind a paywall. I could find one article that actually talked about this. This is kind of what drew my attention to it in the first place. I'll link a PDF in the description from their actual website. That's kind of just a preview of the entire report. I'm guessing you probably don't want to pay money for the report, but maybe you do, who knows? But thankfully, the article that I found did talk about this multi-platform discussion and the conclusions of the data that was found in this report. Now, there's a few, I guess I would call them discrepancies in this article, one being kind of the use of the word multi-platform. I think that's just kind of misleading, right? A lot of people, when they think of multi-platform, think of like different platforms in general. So like I said at the start, you know, kind of the big three for like the consoles, Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox, right? So maybe I'd be like multi-platform if I had both a PlayStation and an Xbox. But with this use of the word multi-platform, they're talking about the other big three, which is kind of more general, more broad when talking about how people can play games. So this is console, PC, and mobile. And so kind of just to cut to the chase here, what is very interesting, what they found in this report, is that when compared to the previous year, 2022, there was a significant increase in gamers that actually used all three gaming platforms. So that number was 5.9 million in 2022, and then it jumped to 7.3 million in 2023. This is an increase of about 18%. I'd say that's pretty big. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't talk about data from 2022 as far as the percentage or population of gamers in general in Japan. So I don't know how that 18% increase compares to just the total amount of gamers. Now, something else interesting is that between the three platforms, mobile gaming is definitely the most popular by itself, followed by console gaming, and then PC gaming is in last place. That trend is the same as here in the United States, but maybe what's not the same as the US, and I would say more interesting, is the percentage of gamers that play on multiple platforms. So the article doesn't actually specifically say the percentage of gamers in Japan from this report that plays on two or more of these platforms, or specifically all three. Like, we know the actual number of gamers, but we don't know the percentage makeup of them. So I kind of just had to do some quick research here. I did a Google Translate of the picture of the PDF on this report that shows these numbers, and then I kind of just did some quick math. Now, what I found is that the percentage of gamers in Japan from this report that plays on two or more platforms is 44%, and then the percentage that plays on all three is just 13%. Now, I wanted to compare this to the US, and I just did a very quick Google search. I found this article from VentureBeat. This article was just from July of this year, and it talks about a study from a firm called ComScore. Now, it looks at the same thing, the percentage of gamers that play on these three platforms, but it just looks at the US instead of Japan. I thought this was very interesting. So again, in Japan, gamers that play on two or more of these platforms is 44%. In the US, it's 77%. Yeah, and then in Japan, gamers that play on all three platforms is 13%. In the US, it's 40%. What that tells me is that Japan, for one reason or another, is just a lot more selective with the platforms that they play on. I want to say just off of a hunch that consoles are just more popular in the US compared to Japan, but that might not be true. Obviously, like I said, PlayStation and Nintendo are both pretty popular in Japan, not simply just because they are made there, but they just have a great following there. So I don't know. And this 40% statistic kind of blew my mind. I mean, I thought about it like, you know, I only play games on console and that's it. But as I thought more about about it, it's like, well, I guess I played like a quick Age of Empires game here and there on my laptop just on Game Pass. And, you know, also too, I just got back into chess. Yeah, I'm putting my nerd glasses on here. I like chess. And I play that on my phone, so I guess, I mean, technically, even though it's not like Angry Birds or Candy Crush, it's still mobile gaming, so I guess I would make up that 40% statistic. So overall, it's very interesting to see both a similarity and a difference in these statistics when maybe comparing Japan to other regions like the US. Overall, though, it is very interesting that this number of people who played on all three platforms definitely rose by quite a bit in 2023 compared to the previous year. And it's definitely not due to just a simple population increase. Japan's population is actually declining. So however you look at it, one thing is for certain, the diversity of gamers in terms of the platform that they are on is definitely on a rise in Japan.